Hello everybody, welcome back to High Ground. My name is Tanner, and today some exciting news. They decided to bring back European Challenger League. It's called Group A of EUL. And all jokes aside, yeah, these groups do look a little bit lopsided, don't they? And of course, this isn't a new observation. Lots of people have pointed this out, and most notably, I just watched a really good video on it that sort of inspired me to make this one by Jerry the Music Man, so I'll link that below if you want an actual in-depth explanation of why this isn't very good, what they could have done instead, and various other things. Check it out. Really good video. I highly recommend it. Watch it. Linked in the description. And yeah, so let's just talk about this pretty briefly, just maybe a couple minutes. Group A has Secret, TT9, Wild, Koi, and Virtus Pro, whereas Group B has MNM, Heroic, G2, BDS, and Wolves. And, you know, just at face value, not even thinking that deeply about how these teams have placed recently, whether that be in EUL or in the LCQ or at the major, Group B looks a lot scarier, don't they? I guess maybe the one standout team that isn't as scary is Heroic, but you've got MNM, who are, you know, they're still trying to become that great team, but they've been pretty consistently a good team, able to beat pretty much anybody on any given day. They almost took down W7M at the most recent major, falling just a little bit short. When they're hot, but sometimes they, you know, fly too close to the sun and burn up and whatever. They are notable for losing a lot of very advantaged situations, losing 4v1, 3v1s, that sort of thing. So, you know, if they can tighten up and find a bit more consistency, they could very well be a top team. Really big threat nonetheless. G2, they're sort of hot and cold as well, but you can't ignore the fact that they are the reigning world champions. They've had some roster changes. I guess Fabian is retiring, and the last slot, yeah, I guess it's Uno over Gemini, even though they brought on Gemini just to not bring him on for the actual stage. I guess he just performed poorly, whatever the case. Anyways, reigning world champions, can't deny that. BDS reigning back-to-back Gamers 8 champions, so when there's a lot of Saudi money on the line, you can count on them to perform, and they usually do pretty well. Otherwise, they did have a sort of uncharacteristically bad stage number 1 where they didn't do well in the groups, and then they failed to even make it to the final of the LCQ, even if they performed okay. But again, you know, not even making it to the finals, let alone winning it. And then Wolves, who are, I think, easily the most consistent team in Europe, and probably like the second most consistently good team in the world behind only W7M. And then over in Group A, Secret and TT9, I think, are easily the worst two teams in the league, and maybe Koi is fighting for that spot, but, you know, Koi, give them a little bit of a break. They had a really bad stage 1, but, you know, everybody can have a bad stage here and there. Secret and TT9 have been bad for a while. They are making roster changes, so we'll see what happens. Maybe they'll be much improved, but they certainly left a lot to be desired with their past performances. And back to Koi, yeah, they did win a major last year, right? But that was when they had Spoit and Kanto, and maybe a lot of people think the loss of Kanto isn't that significant. They also lost Meepy. Maybe that's another big one in the eyes of some, but probably the big one that most people agree was a great boon for them, but then they missed out on it because another team snagged him. Spoit, yeah. So the remaining members of Koi from back then, I guess Cryan, Deepak, and Leon, are still sort of fighting the frauds without Spoit allegations. You know, I think a lot of people think that their win at that major, what was it, Berlin, was a bit of a fluke, and they're still trying to get past that. But you know, again, just one pretty bad stage. I don't think that's enough to count them out, but still, you know, just based on what happened last stage, you know, not looking too hot. Maybe their roster changes going forward will be the correct ones. And then Virtus Pro, yeah, they did underperform slightly in that they didn't make top 8 of a major, but I mean, you got to be a pretty good team if not making the top 8 is a disappointment. They still made top 12. They made it to the last round of Swiss along with, I think it was Wolves and SSG, so they were still top 11 at the major. Not too bad. I think a lot of people think Virtus Pro is going to eat the rest of this group alive. And the last one to talk about, Wild, a little bit of a wild card, you know, no pun intended. They did really well in the group stage of stage number 1. They went undefeated, and then they didn't quite fall apart in the playoffs, but they just didn't live up to the expectations set for them based on that dominant performance. You know, maybe they had a weaker group, but they did face some decent teams. But I mean, I guess those teams just weren't good on the day in those 4 particular best of ones. But again, you know, it wasn't against the top teams by any means. And you know, they were a brand new team at the time, while joining EUL and the roster sort of reforming right before that, and they maintained the same roster. So now with a lot more experience under their belt, not only from stage 1, but also from this lengthy offseason that we've had, I think you can expect good things from Wild. I don't know if they'll be making the major, but I do think it's entirely possible. I think it's reasonable to think that they might top this group, or at least make like top 2 or something. but again, you know, there's a reason for that, because one group is not like the other. So yeah, I mean, if you were gonna rank this group, it'd probably be like VP, Wild, Koi, Secret, TT9, but so much have changed. 2 roster changes on each of Secret, TT9, and Koi, I believe. VP and Wild remaining the same. And then over here, I mean, Heroic, you gotta imagine they're probably last place. You never know. They're only playing a few best of ones to determine the order, but in terms of who will be on top, Wolves, they bombed out of the group's last stage, but then they made a crazy run all the way to the LCQ, all the way to the last round of Swiss at the major. So I mean, we'll see what they do here, but I don't know. I mean, I can't even rank the other 4. Like that's how competitive all 4 of these other teams are, how good they are, and it's just going to be determined by who is the best team on the day. I'll also note that M&M won a tournament in the offseason, Wild won a tournament in the offseason. I suppose BDS also did, but these were sort of regional tournaments, whereas BDS won Gamers 8, a really big international tournament. Okay, so is there anything else to talk about? I was thinking about just actually ranking 1 through 10 all the teams, but I think it's actually like way too hard to do that. Like, you're definitely going to say that I think TT9's 10th, Secret's probably 9th, but again, there's, you know, sort of a bit different teams than they were before, and then the next 2 are probably like Heroic and Koi, and then beyond that, I think it's just too hard to rank that I'm not even going to attempt it. So yeah, I mean, just a relatively quick video here. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, corrections, what are your thoughts on the state of the EUL? Are the groups terrible? Not only the concept of groups, but these particular groups, are they terrible? Should they have based it on something else besides just a few games played in stage number 1? Let me know your thoughts. And with all that being said, I will catch you guys next time.